The cardboard beneath Maya's legs had grown soggy from the morning drizzle, but she barely noticed. Her stomach had stopped. Growling hours ago, a hollow silence. That meant it had given up asking for what she couldn't provide. At 17, she'd learned to measure time not by clocks but by the rhythm of hunger. The sharp pangs of morning, the dull ache of afternoon, and the empty numbness that settled in by evening like an old, unwelcome friend. She pulled her threadbare jacket tighter as business people hurried past her corner. Outside the bank, their expensive shoes clicking against wet pavement, most didn't see her anymore. She'd become part of the city's invisible landscape, just another shadow pressed against cold concrete. But Maya had trained herself to notice what others overlooked, and today she spotted him. The elderly man shuffled along the sidewalk across the street, his movements uncertain and labored. His clothes hung loose on his frail frame, and even from a distance, Maya could see the telltale signs she recognized all too well: the way he paused to steady himself against a lamppost, the careful calculation in each step, the hollow look of someone whose body was eating itself from the inside out. Maya's fingers closed around the crumpled $5 bill in her pocket, her only money, earned from returning aluminum cans that morning. She'd been saving it for dinner, maybe a small sandwich from the convenience store. Her mouth watered at the thought. But as she watched the old man sink onto a bench, his head drooping with exhaustion, something deeper than hunger stirred in her chest. Without thinking, she stood up, leaving her makeshift shelter behind. Traffic rushed between them like a river, but Maya waited for the light, her decision already made. When she reached the bench, she could see the man's ribs pressing against his thin shirt, his breathing shallow and labored. "Excuse me, sir?" Her voice was softer than she intended. "Are you okay?" The man looked up with cloudy blue eyes that seemed surprised anyone had spoken to him. He tried to smile, but it flickered like a candle in the wind. "Just resting, dear. Thank you for asking." Maya knelt beside the bench, studying his face. His cheeks were sunken, his lips cracked. When had someone last offered him kindness? When had she last received it? "When did you eat last?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. His mouth opened, then closed, and Maya saw the shame creep across his weathered features. It's been a while." "Wait here." Maya stood abruptly, her decision crystallizing into action. "Please, just wait here." She hurried to the convenience store on the corner, her bare feet silent on the cold pavement. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, had seen Maya before but never judged her appearance. Maya approached the counter with her $5, scanning the limited options her money could buy. "Can I get the ham sandwich, please?" she asked, pointing to the refrigerated section. "And maybe a bottle of water?" The clerk rang up the items. "That'll be $4.50. Maya handed over her bill, accepted the change, and rushed back to where the elderly man waited. She'd expected him to be gone. People always left, always moved on, but he sat exactly where she'd left him, as if he'd used the last of his strength to stay. "Here." Maya held out the sandwich and water, her hands trembling slightly. "It's not much, but—" The man stared at the food, then at Maya, his eyes filling with tears. "I can't." "You don't understand. I can't take this from you." "You're not taking anything," Maya said firmly, settling beside him on the bench. "I'm giving it." "There's a difference." "But you—" He looked at her torn clothes, her thin frame, the dirt under her fingernails. "You need this more than I do." Maya shook her head. "Nobody needs it more than someone who hasn't eaten. That's not how hunger works." She pressed the sandwich into his hands. "My mom always said that when you're down to your last dollar, that's when you find out who you really are. I'd rather be someone who shares than someone who hoards." The man's hand shook as he unwrapped the sandwich. He took a small bite, then another, and Maya watched color slowly return to his cheeks. They sat in comfortable silence, two strangers bound by an understanding that ran deeper than words. "What's your name, child?" he asked after finishing half the sandwich. Maya Rodriguez." "I'm Albert." He paused, looking at the remaining food. "Maya, this sandwich. It's like you've given me my life back." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with food. "We all need someone to see us sometimes." What neither Maya nor Albert noticed was the man in the expensive suit standing beneath the coffee shop awning, across the street. David Chen, CEO of Chen Industries, had been heading to a business lunch when he'd stopped to take an important call. During the conversation, he'd found himself watching the interaction between the homeless girl and the elderly man, his phone forgotten against his ear. David had built his fortune on reading people, on understanding motivation and character. He'd watched Maya approach the old man, witnessed her disappear into the store, and seen her return with food. Even from a distance, he could tell she was giving away what was likely her only meal. As the CEO of a company worth billions, David encountered charity galas and philanthropic events weekly. He'd written countless checks, attended fundraisers, posed for photos with oversized novelty checks. But when was the last time he'd witnessed genuine sacrifice? When had he seen someone with nothing give everything? His assistant's voice crackled through the phone. "Mr. Chen, are you still there?" "I'll call you back," David said, ending the call without waiting for a response. He watched Maya sit with Albert, saw her refuse his attempts to share the sandwich, witnessed her insistence that he keep it all. When Albert began to cry, Maya didn't look away or seem uncomfortable. She simply sat with him, her presence a gift as valuable as the food. David made a decision. He crossed the street, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the same pavement. Maya's bare feet had traversed minutes earlier. As he approached, he could hear their conversation. "I used to be somebody," Albert was saying, his voice barely above a whisper. "Had a house, a job, a family. But life has a way of taking everything away, piece by piece, until you're not sure who you were before." "You're still somebody," Maya replied. "You're Albert. You're the person who tried to give me back a sandwich even though you were starving. That's somebody worth knowing." David cleared his throat softly. "Excuse me?" Both Maya and Albert looked up, Maya's body tensing with the wariness of someone accustomed to being moved along. Told to leave, dismissed. "I'm sorry to interrupt," David said, his voice gentle. "My name is David Chen. I witnessed what just happened here, and I wondered if I could speak with you both for a moment." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. In her experience, when well-dressed strangers wanted to talk, it usually meant trouble. But something in the man's tone, a genuine quality she couldn't quite identify, made her nod. David sat on the bench beside them, his expensive suit incongruous against the weathered wood. "Maya, what you just did, that was remarkable." "I just shared a sandwich," Maya said defensively. "People do it all the time." "No," David shook his head. "Most people don't. Most people, when they have next to nothing, hold on to it tighter. You gave away what was probably your only meal without hesitation." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Albert needed it more." "That's exactly what I mean." David turned to include Albert in the conversation. "Both of you have something most people spend their entire lives searching for, genuine compassion. Albert, you tried to refuse help because you were thinking of Maya's needs. Maya, you gave without expecting anything in return." David paused, watching their faces. "I run a large company. We're always looking for people with character, integrity, people who understand that true leadership means putting others first." "Maya, how old are you?" 17, she answered cautiously. "Do you have family? A place to stay?" Maya's silence was answer enough. David reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "Maya, I'd like to offer you a job. And Albert, I'd like to help you too if you'll let me." Maya stared at the card as if it might disappear. "I don't understand." "You don't know me." "I know enough," David said. "I know you gave your last $5 to a stranger. I know you chose kindness when you had every reason to choose self-preservation. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Albert spoke up, his voice stronger than it had been all morning. "Young lady, this man is offering you an opportunity. Don't let pride keep you from accepting help when it's offered genuinely." David smiled at Albert. "Wise words. And Albert, I meant what I said about helping you too. I have connections with social services, housing programs. No one should have to go hungry or sleep on the streets." Maya looked at the business card, then at Albert, then back at David. "Why?" she asked simply. "Because kindness is rare," David said. "And when you find it, real kindness. The kind that costs something. You hold on to it. You nurture it. You give it a chance to grow." 6 months later, Maya stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of Chen Industries headquarters, wearing a crisp business suit and holding a college acceptance letter. She'd started as David's assistant, but he'd quickly recognized her intelligence and enrolled her in evening classes. Her job came with housing, health care, and a future she'd never dared to imagine. Albert lived in a senior community now, one of Chen Industries' charitable initiatives. He and Maya had lunch together every Wednesday, sharing stories and sandwiches, though neither of them ever went hungry anymore. David often reflected on that rainy morning when he'd witnessed a homeless teenager give away her last meal. Maya had taught him that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the willingness to share whatever you had, no matter how little. She'd shown him that leadership wasn't about commanding from above, but about serving from beside. As Maya prepared to start college the following fall, her tuition paid by a scholarship fund David had established in her name, she often thought about that moment on the bench. She'd given away a $5 sandwich and received a life beyond her wildest dreams. But the real miracle wasn't in what she'd gained. It was in what she'd always possessed. The understanding that our humanity is measured not by what we keep for ourselves, but by what we're willing to give away.